I'm just waiting for my crazy health food store. There's one or two people that work here. There's a man and a woman, a young girl. And they're the only actually relatively healthy people who work here professionally. I've seen many fallen people. Many people you do not think, that do not look fallen, but they have fallen. Many of the people around you have fallen. They fall in victim. And they spend their lives falling. They fall for everything. They fall for anything. There's a bus stop on the highway. A native woman was sitting there. She did not have money for the bus. The bus driver was kind enough to let her on. And all was well. And right across the road is a native Shell gas station and a Tim Hortons. Huge money makers they've just built. It clearly cost, probably in the millions to build this. Right on the native reserve, there's a big banner saying Aboriginal Day, June 21st. A few years ago on Aboriginal Day, the mother of an Aboriginal man who confided in me that he'd been raped by his mother and was drug addicted, stopped on the road, opened her window, and started accusing me of being a drug addict. She didn't want to talk to me about her son. She didn't want to find out from probably one of the most decent people our son had ever met. He was a depraved bisexual meth addict. Right? She didn't want to talk about her son. She wanted to sit down and have a discussion and learn anything because she didn't want to hear anything. And she let out her warrior energy and violence against an innocent man out of frustration. A white man, you might say. Because I'm the only one in his acquaintance he's ever met. So when you don't, of course I stayed my hand, I didn't get mad at her. She's already sick enough. She's dying. Right? People behave that way are dying. They're dying of their grief, they're dying of the white man, they're dying from society, they're dying from everything. And it's only by dying from everything that you can be anything in a communist society. Everything has to kill you. And you have to keep quiet about it. These health food stores, they're rackets. They're just big money-making machines. I come here to get shiitake mushrooms, not to buy their overpriced, disgusting produce, which is actually piss poor. You can actually find better produce, right, from major supermarkets than you can in these fucking stores. Right? And where it is local, you think it would be less expensive, but it isn't. Organic doesn't mean everything. Nutritious doesn't mean everything. Local and ethical. I wonder how much shit in this store is actually local. They always say local. Your local organic food store, your farmer's market, local, local, local. Did you know that most of them have products shipped in from all over the world? There was a guy at a local farmer's market, some white dude, was selling imported jewelry. That's what he did with his time. Right? So right across the highway from this Indian woman sitting there who doesn't have money for the bus is an Indian-based corporation making millions of dollars a year. And everywhere you go, you see these Indian ghettos. And then you see these big, rich houses where the chiefs live. These aren't chiefs. The biggest threat to the native people is their own people. But is it their fault? Is it their fault? See, when you live in a fallen society, like this, a communist society, it's really fallen for at least 500 years and everyone's fucked, basically. Every day is a battle. Every day, you have to make the biggest decision in the world is how you're going to direct your anger. How are you going to direct your anger? Because everybody's angry. I can see a lady just serving someone their insurance. She's overweight. She's about 50 pounds overweight. Big fucking ass. Fat fucking arms. sits around at a desk all fucking day, selling people their corporate monopoly insurance that, there's no competition for it whatsoever, and they pay up the ass. Right? It's not a job. And that's, of course, like being a slot machine is a job. And someone puts in their money and you're like, tilt, tilt, tilt every time. So that you see these impoverished native people. You look at their communities. Right behind this beautiful building is a ghetto, is an Indian ghetto. And these houses are all falling down. Up island, you'll see these ghettos. And then you see these big mansions where the chief lives, gathering all this fucking money, right, to protect their people. Because their best chance of being anyone in this world is what? To dominate. Right? If you're hurt enough and you're grief-stricken, what do you have to do? You have to dominate. What do white people do? They dominate. Most people's relationships, they just have to be dominant all the time. I live with a rapist, my mother. If she isn't able to inflict more pain on me than it could possibly be good for me to inflict upon her, right? She goes out of her fucking mind. She goes out of her fucking mind. She's a nice lady. She does nice things for me, and we're getting on right now. I had a day or two of critical illness from being sexually assaulted by her again. And she just does it normally, very easily. It comes out. You can almost see when she's doing it. It's almost like she's passing some kind of tumor out of her throat. Like people can actually speak sickness out of their lungs. She doesn't have to think about anything. She doesn't read anything. She doesn't have any education, but she can pass tumors out of her throat chakra. You don't need people to be educated, but they can be geniuses at hurting other people. That's the great thing about a communist society. You've got ingenious criminal masterminds policing you every day. They're called your fellow man, all trying to get a leg up. My uncle worked just a block away from here. Made a lot of money managing a furniture store. Dressed like a poof every day of his life, and called me a homosexual. Right? Right? He's an ally of mine now. He has great strength. I think his voice of his spirit would say something very different after he passed away than he did when he was here. I think if he had to do over, he probably wouldn't spend his life in a fucking furniture store. Right? But to all these people, that's considered a dignified life. That's how you protect your home and family. And it's not that it isn't necessarily a bad way to go, except for the way society is organized. Right? He was an angry man. His brothers are angry. They all die of cancer. They're angry because they never knew how to distribute. He'd rather distribute it on me as a child than distribute it on people who maybe deserve it. You have to distribute your anger with mercy. But you know you have it. You can either keep it inside, or you can put it to use. Understanding the world better. I only understand the world I do because of my anger, because of my rage, that the world gives you. And you can either turn that into understanding, you can distribute your anger accordingly, or you can just swallow it, work, and take your anger out on people willy-nilly, who happen to always be people like me, your children, vulnerable people. Right? And you don't even have to know what you're doing. That's the usual way. If you want to be the usual communist coward, that's all you have to do. That's the way. I'll simplify life for you. And you can do any career you want. You can either be a communist coward, or you can learn from your anger, and learn that every day, unless you're protected, as some people are by their jobs and by their mental illnesses, you actually have a dangerous job to do every day, which is deal with your anger. That's a dangerous enough job in a communist world. And distribute it accordingly. Did I decide to get angry at this native woman for basically assaulting me in public? No. She's sick. She's dying. He's dying. It's just a matter of time. Right? He lives off of meth and having random sex with people, right? And sucking cock. And he loves it. He loves it. Right? By the time he was 18, he knew how to make crack cocaine. Right? And she's calling me a drug dealer. Right? She raped him. Her family raped him. That's what these natives are doing to each other, because we did that to them. Grief. There's all these books on how to deal with grief. People deal with grief by being fucking violent fucking criminals. That's what they do. Or by being hardworking communists. It's the same thing. If you're hurt, it comes with responsibilities. It's not fair. If you're hurt, it comes with responsibilities. No one tells you. If you're hurt enough by the world, it comes with powerful responsibilities, because a life-death decision awaits you every fucking day, and that's what you're going to do about it. Are you going to learn? Is it safe to learn? Is it safe to speak? What are you going to do with your anger? How are you going to distribute your energy? I have to do that every fucking day of my life. So in these native communities, all they're doing is taking money and keeping it from their people, because that's the only thing they've learned from the white people to do, is to be dominant. So this young native woman, and native people in Canada will tell you how often native women are raped and misused, is picked up by a white bus driver and is now under his power, technically, because she's not able to pay. And the bus stops and everyone gets off, and she's sitting there for some reason. I don't know what she's waiting for. And if she was a male, would he have picked her up? And so on and so on. She's an attractive young female. She's overweight, as often they often are. Right? And they'll say, oh, our people are getting raped, our people are getting raped. Then why don't you give them bus fare when you're making millions of dollars? It doesn't make any sense. So you can't really hold them to any ethical proportions, meaning they're forcing you to be racist toward them. If I accept it, I'm racist. If I don't accept it, I'm a racist. Right? Right? I agree that all white people are racist, but you don't give me a chance not to be a racist, because you're a racist to yourself. This young woman doesn't have $5, doesn't have $2.50 for the fucking bus. Right across the highway from one of their gas stations, making hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars a year, right? From all their casinos and stuff. And they're living in poverty, in ghettos right behind it, and big bold ad, Aboriginal Day. It was Aboriginal Day when I was last attacked by an Aboriginal for simply befriending her son. I was the only one of her son's friends that wasn't a homosexual drug dealer. A man that by the time he was 23 was already running guns and drugs around BC. And he's good at it. You know why? Because in high school he changed personalities. They were taking him around from school to school in northern BC, and he was getting beat the fuck out of. Because on all these working communities, right, there's an unspoken rule. Your training starts early. These fucking people, these bus drivers, this guy unloading food over here, they live a hard life. A hard life. They're doing hard time. They're born doing hard time. Their job is a fucking relief compared to the fat, ugly piece of shit they have to fuck when they go home at night. Most of them need to get thoroughly fucking drunk before they do that. All they got is TV and bonbons, waiting all day for their big daddy-o to get home with his big fat check. They know what's good for them, right? They know what's good for them. They know what they need to do. But what they don't need to do is be true warriors. They don't need to learn from what's happening to them. They just need to go along with it. They don't get to say no. I saw a young white woman, sexually precocious, Christian. Her parents have her in like 4 different extracurricular activities, and band, and volunteering, and work, and school, and church, and volunteering, right? Every time I saw her working on the weekend, and I would go shopping, she looked harried as fuck. And sometimes I think all she wanted to do was fuck me. All she wanted was some nice guy to fuck. Right? Not me, I thank you. So stressed out, they don't get the chance to say no. Because all their parents know exactly how to raise you. They know what to do. They know what makes a decent person like them. A good communist. Let's make more communists. Let's keep doing the same thing. But we'll fix the environment and all the cancer and autism and neurological dysfunction, alcoholism, rape, right? Inflated taxes, inflated prices, deflated wages, sickness, mental illness, chronic pain, abuse, all the shit that people do to each other. Black people do to each other, and Indians do to each other. It's like the same thing in the States. The worst fucking enemy of the black people is the black people. And of course, if you have a problem, let's just start a religion. It's called Black Lives Matter. That's a religion, right? And they hire some of the most criminal fucking people to run the different chapters of it. One chapter, Black Lives Matter, was run by a woman who'd gone to prison and had actually tortured the testicles of a white male. Nothing ever has to be that great. It just has to sound great. Hey, look, I'm going to try to cult too. We're going to fucking torture babies. We're called White People Matter. Why don't you join my cult? I'll collect all your fucking money, and you'll have no fucking help from me except you'll get to believe, right? We'll get your drug. We get your little chemical endorphin. Oh, believe. That'll make it all better. I'll believe. This cult over here, these people, we're all working for everyone to move better. Ooh. And then where does that rage go? Then where does that anger boil up into? Next thing you know, you got yourself a good old riot. I knew a young man, Trevor. He suffered from impotence growing up. He was already showing signs of unprovoked violence towards me on the soccer field. He was probably one of the most violent people I ever met as a child. He's a homosexual. He grew up impotent. All homosexuals grow up impotent. They're men with impotence. And same thing with trannies. They trade all the problems of impotence for the clothing of a homosexual or a woman. And the fashion industry helps them. They become impotent soldiers of the good life. And they get the euphoria from mutually molesting each other. That's all it is. So Trevor was impotent. Right? And I was sitting at this table in my own home with about 4 homosexuals, 1 lesbian, 3 homosexuals. One was a real poof. So he's the one who's like, whoa, he's like being a girl and being funny. And the other 2 were really serious, sort of upper middle class from England, homosexuals, right? And they couldn't say anything nice about me or my home. Just constantly criticizing everything. And the lesbian, of course, hated my guts. She never knew what to say to me. The last time I saw her, she just looked at me with rage and didn't know what to say. And I never fucking said a bad word to her. Gave her a place to live. Right? But they're impotent. They're impotent. And if you're not impotent, or if you don't look like what you're doing, something that is as though the solution to impotence, which is working is the solution to male impotence. Right? And if you work, you become impotent. These hardworking, Vancouver Island is a study in impotence and homosexuality. You see these men, often police officers or working men and stuff like that, and most of them are impotent. You can see that just by the way they move around, right? The only sex they're having, unless is under the influence of alcohol. It's just to relieve the stress of the day, maybe. That's how they get their anger out. That's why, when I'm attacked by a redneck, it's like they want to fuck me. Because when they do have sex, it's the release of violence. I know the sound of them. I know what homosexuals sound like. I know what impotent people sound like. The working makes people impotent. Right? It's humiliating. Taking children to school makes them impotent. It's humiliating. A communist society makes people impotent. You get people who have sex function. I'll see women walking around. You could just see they're violent, sexually violent people. Just looking at them. I can't have sex with these women. They're sexually violent. Right? Just the way they live. Whether they do their yoga, they do their CrossFit, they're violent. They're all sexual predators. Most people are impotent sexual predators. That's what communists are. They're impotent sexual predators. They're lesbians and homosexuals. They're disgusting. There's women who work in the store. They're just fucking disgusting. They're disgusting. I literally feel like taking a shower after having to buy food on me. And then there's one or two that are nice.